justification to make them because respect your freedom of speech. Because the left just says, oh, again, they're constitutional scholars all of a sudden. They'll say freedom of speech really means that the government can't censor you. It doesn't mean that private agents can't censor you. First of all, no. The First Amendment says that the government cannot infringe on your rights of freedom of speech, but private sectors can't. It said, but by omission, therefore, private actors can infringe on your freedom of speech. Therefore, Twitter is infringing on my freedom of speech. As classical liberals who are not libertarians understand it, they have the right to do it legally under the First Amendment as commonly understood. But it doesn't mean that my free speech is not being suppressed. And if conservatives really want to just play a fun game, they can say, watch, I'm going to reinterpret the Constitution right now. Since Twitter enjoys effectively a government subsidy in the form of its copyright, it has to subject itself to the First Amendment in the same way that any private sector actor in the United States right now takes government money is subject to the Civil Rights Act. There, I did it. Congratulations, it's a freebie. I mean, Dan, do you have any... Since neither of us are going to criticize the Civil Rights Act and the way it's implemented, is there any way to defeat this argument?
Oh, I was hoping you would.
Right, no.
I can't.
If we can apply the Civil Rights Act to private sector actors because they take government money, then fine. Twitter takes government subsidy in the form of copyright. Therefore, we apply the full First Amendment free speech standard, and we take them down to the level of fire in a crowded theater. Right there, that's what you can suppress. Right, you can only suppress speech that the government can suppress.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
Libertarians will say, oh, but then you're putting power in the government's hands, and they can decide But you see, if the private sector is censoring more, and you're taking them down to the bare level things the government can justify, there's no way. You have to imagine that censorship for for private sector actors is on a simple straight line, like geometric curve, and then for the government, it's some kind of exponential function that hasn't intersected the straight line yet. And right now the private sector level is higher, but once x equals greater than 1, or whatever, or greater than 2, then you're gonna see some serious shit, right? Then the government's really gonna take off. No, don't be dumb. And you know what? Guess what? Politics doesn't matter, or rather, it matters a lot. Consistency doesn't matter. Once the government gets worse, change your mind. Who's going to stop you? Oh, libertarians, you were saying this before, and I'm saying this now. Who's going to stop me? You? No one. So that's the argument. But conservatives don't want to make that argument. Why? Because if they make that argument, it's going to be harder for them to fight the Civil Rights Act. They're not going to do that anyway. So fuck it.
It seems pretty airtight.
It's ironclad. We've already been using this logic for the past, 2020? 56 years. Go for it. I went to an integrated school. I'm allowed to vote in southern states. Therefore, Twitter has to let me post QAnon. All right, there. All right, just tie yourself to the mast of the Civil Rights Act. There's 5 Supreme Court cases that you have as precedent, and just double dog dare the Democrats to go against it. And if they do, you know what you say? Democrats are the real racists.
Because that always works.
Yeah. There you go. It's I wrapped up the argument in a nice little bow for you. Trump beat the coronavirus. Trump is now, he says, I don't know if this is a real line. The doctors have never seen DNA like mine. It's not DNA, it's USA, or something like that.
I think that one was fake.
It might have been fake. The point is, he doesn't have COVID, or he says he doesn't have COVID. And now Democrats are saying, I bet he made up having COVID. He just faked it. Or was a false
he
positive.
Did not say that his DNA was USA. He did say that he thinks he's immune. He's also kind of implied that doctors told him he's immune, and that he feels stronger than ever. He's referred to himself as feeling powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
My
really
powers
funny.
have increased.
Yep, he was dancing to the YMCA. He said he was going to go out into the crowd and kiss all the men and all the beautiful women. All the men, but only all the beautiful women.
Well, if he only kissed the beautiful men, that would imply that he was gay because he was judging.
Yeah, he can't tell the difference between a beautiful man and an ugly man. They all look ugly.
Yeah, listen, if you to prove that you're not gay, you need to kiss men indiscriminately.
Yeah, because you can't tell a good-looking one from a bad-looking one.
You're just not judging him. You're just kissing him.
Discriminate because you know a good one when you see one.
Exactly.
You got USA flowing through your veins.
And the Democrats have suddenly become COVID skeptics. Like maybe it was a false positive. Maybe he didn't even get it, right?
This is a hoax.
It was a hoax. And, the reason Trump
survived...
But
when Ron Paul said that, they gave him a stroke.
Yeah, they gave him a stroke. Donald Trump is 77 and obese. So he had
he was in the hospital for an hour.
He had almost a 1% chance of dying from it. But actually, the reason probably Donald Trump did so well with it is because Donald Trump famously doesn't smoke and doesn't drink. You know who also doesn't smoke and doesn't drink? Hitler, by the way. But yeah, Donald Trump doesn't smoke and doesn't drink. And even though he eats a whole lot of junk food and he's clearly not like the healthiest guy, his lungs are probably pretty healthy for a 77-year-old. Like, I don't know, like he doesn't do cardio, but his lungs are fine. His immune system is probably perfectly fine for a guy his age too. So yeah, of course he survived.
So he said that on what? It was like Friday at 3 a.m. He was like, "Oh, by the way, I got COVID," on Twitter. And then, by I think that was like in the wee hours, like 1 a.m. on Friday. I remember at 11 a.m. on Friday, something like that. Because I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think it was when we were recording that he got it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I got it." Right as we were recording, he was going to the hospital. He's like, "I got to go to the hospital now." Yeah. And I remember I said to you, either I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but I said something like he got diagnosed last night. He said he was fine this morning. He's going to the hospital today. He's going to be dead by 6 p.m. Like it was going so fast.
Yes, yeah.
And then on Saturday, he goes and drives around the block and says, "I'm fine." And on Sunday, he's like, "I'm stronger than ever." I definitely think he is on steroids, and this is affecting his brain.
They did, yeah. They mentioned that, and the fact that Trump has almost no drug tolerance at all, I'm sure is why.
I think he's on performance enhancing drugs.
Now he is, yeah. Now I agree.
He's dancing at the YMCA. He's saying he's stronger than ever. I was watching it on TV the other day. He was doing some rally, and he put on the "Make America Great Again" hat, and then he was like shifting into casual mode. Because I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes he wears the suit and the power tie.
Yeah.
Sometimes he used to wear the MAGA hat with no tie, unbuttoned, one button undone. So he was shifting. So he took off the tie and threw it into the crowd. And my mother was in the room, and she was like alarmed. She was like, "Is the president of the United States stripping in front of a crowd in Iowa?" And any other president, my answer would have been, "No, he's taking off the tie." And I had to wait a second to be sure, because I was like, he might be. We'll give this a second. We'll find out. There's nothing he can do that would shock us at this point.
And
as Jeb would say, he could moon everybody.
Capstone to the Trump presidency. There was also Democrats have been criticizing him for surviving COVID. Mind you, criticizing him for surviving a disease.
First, they criticized it. They blamed him for getting it. They victim blamed the president.
And then once he
survived, said, "Oh, well, he's going to these bathhouses. He deserves it. He should die. He knows the risk. He knew the risks."
And now they were saying.
Now, you remember there was a time when people said that. Yeah. Point is, we never blame people for diseases that they contract.
They were saying, "Oh, Donald Trump only survived because he's getting this high quality health care at the custom presidential suite at such and such hospital, Washington, D.C., which, might have some validity to it if Donald Trump, I guess because he opposes the Affordable Care Act. Has anybody died because they couldn't afford the COVID treatment? Like, you'd think I would have heard a news article about this, right? Somebody like dying, like, "Oh, I had COVID and the doctors wouldn't treat me because I had no insurance or something." I don't really think nobody's died from lack of accessible COVID healthcare.
Well, these are from the same people who say that. They go, "Oh, well, Trump survived because he has such good, high-quality medicine." These are the same people who tell you, "There's no treatment. There's nothing you can do. You get it, you get it. All you can do is wear your mask vaccine."
Oh, God, they're so hypocritical. They keep contradicting themselves. Man, we really own the libs this time. And, another one.
They're gonna just if we point out their hypocrisies,
they will
curl up and they will blow away like a leaf in the wind.
Also, to show how much they're really scraping the barrel, they went back in time to like 2004, and they're like, "Hey, did you Republicans know that the treatment Donald Trump took is something called Regeneron or whatever? It involved stem cells. It used fetal stem cell treatment. Like, it was based on stem cell research." Like, I can't even think about how long has it been since any Republican ever has even uttered the phrase stem cell research? Like,
I think that one was a losing issue and they just dropped it.
Yeah, like now it's like Planned Parenthood is selling baby parts, which is just rephrasing. Actually, it's just a repackaging of almost the exact same issue. But at least that was something you could. The Democrats denied that. Turned out to obviously be true because it It was very strange. The Republicans were against stem cell research because it involved baby parts, right? And the Democrats said stem cell research is real and it's good. And then the Republicans realized that.
Yeah, you remember because they also mocked Ronald Reagan for getting Alzheimer's. Because they said, oh, Ronald Reagan, who was like pretty much never really against abortion, he helped liberalize abortion laws in California. They go, he got Alzheimer's. And we all know if we had discovered this treatment 30 years ago, which was impossible to have discovered 30 years ago, we would have fixed Alzheimer's, which we still haven't done. It was like, haha, you got Alzheimer's.
And so Republicans made a pretty smart decision. They repackaged, we're against stem cell research, and they said, no, okay, let's try that. It doesn't work. Planned Parenthood is selling baby parts for stem cell research. But then the Democrats suddenly were like, actually, that's not true. And then, veteran journalist James O'Keefe had to just like, yes, it is. And it's like, yeah, we just repackaged the old issue into a new one, into a better, and suddenly it's not true anymore. Nobody cares. It's very strange. And now that I've shown this hypocrisy, anything else on Trump beating the virus?
When he came out of the hospital and he said, don't let it dominate your life.
Yes.
Don't let fear dominate your life. Don't be afraid. I got it. I beat it. It can happen. And the fucking, talk about a mask slipping. The media went ballistic. Now, it would be one thing to say, he's right. We shouldn't let fear dominate our life. But at the same time, we don't want to underplay the risks. We don't want to make it seem like this isn't a big deal. That's not what they said. He said, don't let fear dominate your life. And they went, no, you have to let fear dominate your life. How dare he? If these people know that they cannot let fear dominate their life, then we'll all be dead.
Remember,
these people are so, the phrase enemy of the people has been used. But I don't know who came up with that. I don't know where I've heard that before. Somebody called them the enemy of people. A wise man once said.
Do you remember, this was like a decade ago, when the Daily Show and the Colbert Report were on, and Jon Stewart said he was going to rally to restore sanity. Yeah. And then Stephen Colbert had his rival, massive air quotes on rival, the March to Keep Fear Alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, because Republicans use fear to scare people. Like Joe Biden telling black people that if you don't vote for me,
Mitt Romney's going to put you back in chains.
They will put y'all back in chains.
Yeah, and Mitt Romney remembered that insult, and he's never forgiven Joe Biden. He's always been a staunch Republican, and he's never, fucked over the party. I feel like, I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it's pretty funny for Republicans that the two most disloyal members were John McCain and Mitt Romney, their former presidential nominees. They really know how to pick them.
Yeah, his main point was we should not allow fear to dominate our lives, and they thought that this was effectively a criminal thing to say.
He's the president of the United States. You ever think about that? He's our war boss, all right? He's our chief of chiefs, literally supreme military commander, governor of governors, and he has to deal with this.
Well, it's funny because what the fuck do you expect the president of the United States to say? I hate to say it, but that was Trump being presidential. The president's supposed to say, don't be afraid. We can beat this. Remember when we got bombed by the Japanese? FDR didn't say, the only thing we have to fear is fucking Japanese zeros. Everybody run and hide.
I mean, honestly, clearly the most presidential
he
thing
said
you can...
fear itself. Oh, wait, no, that wasn't the Japanese. I think that was the Depression. But the point was, he didn't say panic. He said, don't be afraid.
Listen, the most presidential thing you can do is to tell people don't be afraid of something and then put those people in concentration camps anyway.
Yeah.
Speaking of, do you remember, just a minor tangent, on a minor tangent, do you remember when we were worried about, worried, when the Democrats are saying that ICE had concentration camps filled with children on the border?
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd that story
No, they weren't camps. They were just cages. They were just like cages spread out in the woods. I mean, out in the desert. They didn't even have, there was no facilities. They would just pick up a kid from ICE. They'd pick him up at the border. Then they'd wander around the desert until they found a loose cage. And they go, all right, here's an empty one. This one's just got a dead body in it, so put him in here.
But no. AOC was very specifically using the term concentration camp. I remember, because I'm pretty sure
she went over to an ICE thing and she kneeled by the fence and put her hand on it.
Yeah.
And she wept.
It was a Vietnam memorial or the Wailing Wall.
And she wept openly with her hand on this chain link fence. And there was like a kid eating a slice of pizza on the other side of the fence looking at her like, who is this lady?
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that was the same quote-unquote concentration camp that Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura